Welcome back to Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. Last time, Team Ike encountered their obligatory Disciples of Order ambush in Fog of War, but overall I didn't have that bad of a time with that chapter. And now, well, we've done both other groups, it's time to switch to Team Valencia.
Tibarn's party takes a long, circuitous route, leading them east around Lake Semper. The Hawk King's company includes Queen Alincia of Crimea, her trusted aide Lucia, the Heron Prince Rayson, the Laguz warrior Ranulf, Dayan's King Peleus, and the Queen Mother Almeida. While they receive reports from the other two groups about the Disciples of Order, they have encountered no resistance and have thus far traveled in peace.
I think we're actually going into the area where Chapter 18 of Path of Radiance happened. Also, that's one of the few times that the opening narration for a chapter can change. Obviously, they don't mention Peleus there if you killed him during Part 3. And speaking of changes in dialogue, there's going to be a few changes in dialogue to this scene as well, depending on whether Janeth and Ulki are with Tibarn and Alincia. I switched Janeth to Ike's party, so we're only going to get Ulki's dialogue in these scenes. Well, you were the ones who decided to take the long, circuitous route. You probably shouldn't be complaining about taking too long. Good thing you have those sending stones, so the other parties can say, oh yeah, we're fighting some enemies who can teleport out of nowhere and ambush you. Well, Rayson travelled all over the place when he was with Ike's party. Yeah, we've pretty much figured that out by now. We've seen that come into play both in Path of Radiance and in this game. That is very true. That is pretty much the definition of lawful evil in a sense. Well, the natural conclusion of that. A lot of people use lawful evil for just like honorable villains or villains who have a code, but this is like the absolute purest extension of that. Lawful evil by the Shin Megami Tensei definition. So anyway, yeah, here, this scene changes a little bit, depending on, if you have both Janeth and Ulki, as per the default, you'll see both of them in this scene. I only have Ulki, so, I actually did record a few scenes from this chapter in a version where I had both Janeth and Ulki with this party, so I can show, that in bonus footage. Yeah, if they don't attack us, that could mean they're trying to lull us into a false sense of security, or lure us into an ambush. That's kind of a good point. Yeah, we need both order and chaos in the world. Removing one of them is just going to make things far worse. Then and we get experience. So, from a fourth wall breaking standpoint, these lines are actually kind of interesting, because maybe they're not fighting us because they don't want to give us experience. This scene, obviously, very, very different if, Peleus died. In fact, I don't think this scene plays at all if Peleus is dead, though it's been a long time since I've gone that route, so I've kind of forgotten. And yeah, we know that now, the Goldoa part, so they can openly discuss it. You say more important than all these peasants, but I just realized, this group includes several kings and queens, so... Elincia's here, Tiban's here, a lot of people here are directly retainers to those rulers. If anything, peasants are in the minority in this group. And on that note, we head into the base, so as always, I'll go to info conversations first. And here's the third sequel to the random rays of light illuminating patches of ground conversations. I like the way it's implied that he says that just so cheerfully. So yeah, this same thing. Another Satori sign. Something that I've since found out is that Satori is actually Japanese for enlightenment. So, in this case, they just decided to leave the term untranslated because it sounded cooler that way. That's interesting knowing that Tiban hasn't actually rested ever since that moment. And Tiban's being the same as always. And another one of these items that I still find questionably useful because the majority of Lagoos that you would want to use them on already have mastery skills to begin with. So, it's... I don't know, I've never really found the Satori signs all that great, and you can't sell them. And yeah, just as Team Micaiah got Muston, and Team Ike sadly got Aimee, George and Daniel went with Team Elincia. And that means they're the only group that has access to the Forge for at least the first part of Part 4. Well, at least this group actually justifies why you still have to pay for things in the shop. You can probably guess what this gift is. Team Micaiah got the SS Thunder Tome, Team Ike got the SS Wind Tome, so by extension... Yep, we get the Ultimate Fire Tome. This one was also in the coding of Path of Radiance, but was never obtainable in that game without hacking. I think its animation was fully functional, though. And yeah, explanation for why these two didn't get turned to stone. Yeah, these two are kind of so generic it makes sense they wouldn't fall under the too powerful to be turned to stone exemption. A lot of people like to apply that logic to Fire Emblem 4 to insist that Ira is definitely okay, because there's no way she would have been turned to stone. So, we have... Did Elincia get that? Yes, we have Rex Flame now. So, the description doesn't tell you, but this... I've said this many times, but this gives +5 speed when equipped, which is really, really useful. Unfortunately, it's gonna be too heavy for Sanaki to use most of the time, but she's the most likely one to end up using it since she is forced into endgame. However, Khalil makes really good use of this. We've still got Amity on Elincia, but she doesn't have any staves, and she still has Mercy, which is for Elincia only. In fact, speaking of that, I promised that I'd show something kind of funny with the blessing skill. Although I might have to save before I do that. Let me just quickly check, because we have Rayson with this party. Yeah, you know what? I'm actually just going to go ahead and save just in case it does end up taking up capacity. So, an odd quirk about the blessing skill, and it also applies to the boon skill that dragons have, is that that's actually interesting that it says Heron Princes and Princesses, because you never get a generic Heron, in other words, a non-royal one. They do exist though. The art book has official artwork of non-royal Herons, but the only Herons you ever see are all royalty. But if you remove Blessing and it turns into a skill scroll... Oh, that's interesting. They must have changed that in the European version, because I know that in some versions of the game, the Blessing Scroll is called Sky Boon, which is the skill's Japanese name, but I guess they fixed that in the European version. Didn't know that. And yes, it does take up capacity if you give it back, so I'm going to go ahead and reset now. On the subject of skills, though, there is one very important, well, sort of important decision that I have to make. So, Aaron here still has a Paragon Scroll from Micaiah's party during Part 3. I think I want to keep that on him because he obviously is kind of in need of experience. He's going to come out a little bit lower level than everyone else, though I am going to bonus experience him to 3rd tier in the base here. But I do have a second Paragon Scroll. Now, I want to hold on to this for a character who's going to be joining Team Elincia during this chapter. The problem is, since he joins mid-chapter and not at the base, I can't give him Paragon during this chapter itself. So, it's gonna just sit here uselessly unless I give it to somebody, so... I wanna give it to either... Oh, Nolan's already full in capacity. Nephany, maybe? Nephany or Nolan. In fact, I'm actually extremely lucky that I gave, that I put Nolan in this party, because Beast Foe is actually going to be useful in the second Team Elincia chapter. That was just a pure coincidence. I forgot that he still had that, and you actually really want that for 4-5. But anyway, might as well give you that, I guess, even though I'm probably not going to be using you that much from now on, but we'll see. That or Tyronio could have taken it, because Tyronio might end, I might actually use him a little bit in this chapter. His stats are really solid, and I don't have a lot of particularly powerful fighters. I mostly just have Nephany and Aaron, as well as obviously Tiban and Elincia. Don't worry, I will cover Tiban's bio soon. But yeah, I might end up using Tyronio a little bit. I don't think I'll 3rd tier him with bonus experience though. Also, Lucia's back. This is the first time she's playable since Part 2. Since one chapter in Part 2, yeah, this is why I don't like Lucia in this game very much. She is technically not that bad, but her availability is just garbage. And you might also notice, Joffrey is not with us, so his availability is just as bad, if not worse. But anyway, let me show off Tiban here. So, his stats are ridiculous. When he's transformed, he actually has 10 movement, rather than 9 like most transformed flying Lagoos. And he has a ridiculous assortment of skills.
To wing, brothers! Keep up with me if you can!
So, yeah. Tiban's transform stats tell you all there is to know about him. He'll kill almost everything he gets his talons on, he's fast, he's durable, he has some insane skills, he flies, and he has 10 movements. He is easily one of the strongest characters in the game. But, what can I nitpick? Well, he does have a Heaven affinity, which is pretty terrible. His resistance isn't the best. And the biggest thing, of course, is his lack of 1-2 range. That's a problem that all Lagoos, including Royals, suffer from, though. If Tiban did have 1-2 range, he'd be probably as close to perfect as you could get in a character in this game. Sure, he's not as fast as Nasala, but with a base speed of 40 and a maximum of 46, with strength and defense that high, it's still good enough. Regarding skills, he has the typical Lagoos Royal fare of Form Shift and his Mastery skill. He also has Savior, which helps other characters get around the battlefield much more easily, and Pavis, a skill that we haven't seen before. But if you played the last game, it should be somewhat familiar. It's the exact same as the Hawk's Mastery skill, Cancel, from Path of Radiance. It reduces an incoming attack to 0 damage when it activates, and it's still skill percent. I know, I couldn't believe that either when I read it, but apparently it's true. This means that at base, even if an attack somehow manages to hit Tiban, he has a 48% chance of nullifying it entirely. Lagoos Royals, everyone! So, yeah, that's Tiban. Also, these are the maximum powered Great Talon because he has an SS rank and strike. So, items. Let's see. The Laguz Stone, I might want to give that to Ranulf, maybe. You can convoy Rex Flame, and do I have any spare staves? I kind of want to keep rescuing the convoy because it could be really useful during the desert chapter. Like I said, though, I'm going to keep this staff until endgame because I will need it to show off some special boss conversations. Might actually need to buy some more staffs. Are there any other staff users in this party? Doesn't really look like it, actually. So, yeah, might actually have to buy some. Let's just go with a men's staff. I would really like her to have physic. I probably should have convoyed somebody's physic staff, but I did steal a physic staff from a bishop back in 4 Prologue. I might end up putting that in the convoy so that Alincia can take that later. Restore might not be that bad to have in this chapter as well, because we are going to have to encounter a status staff at some point. We also have some magic cards, and for some reason they keep wanting to sell us Wormslayers. There are some Wyvern Riders in this chapter, but yeah, I mean, I think they want you to have Wormslayers for later. I've alluded to that before, but yeah. Okay, weird thing is, I may actually need to, unless I happen to have a cheaper card in the convoy that I can just sacrifice. Because if I want to show special boss conversations, oh, I can sell that torch, because there is no more Fog of War chapters left in the game. If I want to show certain special boss conversations, I still have to use the boots. That's really dumb, I probably should do that. I'm still debating who to use it on, though. But yeah, I will actually need to... Yeah, that's actually kind of a problem, because gold is a little limited at this point in the game. But I will need to buy a card if I want to show one of Raisin's boss conversations in this chapter more easily. I guess I can give that to you. And I don't think I'll be needing... Yeah, I won't be needing the card on anyone else in this part, so I can keep that on Raisin and not end up putting it in the convoy. In terms of items, though, Toronu probably needs some better weapons. Guess he can take a steel axe, and might as well take a silver lance. Do I have any? Yeah, I've got a ton of javelins. Let's just take another one of those. How's Nephany doing in terms of weapons? Okay, steel lance is not going to cut it at this point in the game, so let's switch you over to. You might as well take a javelin. I think Aaron already has a silver great lance. Yeah, he does, so... And a silver lance, even though it's not really all that. Even though it has a pretty low durability. I think Nephany's fine. She probably doesn't need that vulnerary because she's going to heal herself for a lot every turn thanks to Imbue, so I might want to give that to someone else, maybe... Alincia can take a little bit of damage in this chapter sometimes. I actually could have given Alincia Paragon too. Maybe that's better. Because Noel will already be getting tons of experience, and I don't really plan on using him that much anyway. Actually, you know what? Let's just do that. Yeah, let's just give you Paragon. As for the other skills that I have... Ranulf with Pass is not a bad idea. Smite is a very useful skill to have as well, though maybe I'll save that for the next chapter, because that one's a desert map, so I'm going to really need Smite there. I will actually need to deploy Kirin in this chapter, because he has a special boss conversation I want to show. Pass, Blossom... Let's see, is there anyone here who could... Well, you're going to be promoting to 3rd tier soon, so... Maybe I should do that now. I'm just going to take him to level 1 3rd tier. Because I want to save most of this bonus experience for later, when we start to cap most of our stats in 3rd tier. Because play your cards right with bonus experience, and you will have everyone capping everything by the end of the game. Well, everyone you're using, that is. And here is Aaron's extremely awesome looking Sentinel or Lancer in this version outfits. Yeah, most people like the name Sentinel a lot better for the 3rd tier soldier class. I don't really know why they changed it in the European version. But anyway, at level 1, he has as much strength as Nephany at level 3, but Nephany is a lot faster and has much better luck and resistance. But yeah, Aaron is more of a general, like, Lancer slash... I can't even say it, I want to instinctively call it Sentinel. But yeah, he has more of a general type build, but with Bo's experience, you can get his speed up pretty high. He's got some pretty nice stats at this point. So you still have Paragon, and... Oh, right, Impale took up the rest of that 30, so you don't actually have any more capacity. I don't think he needs Paragon, but... I don't think he needs parity here. And I actually want to be hoarding those parity scrolls for much later in the game. But is there any... That's the only 10 capacity skill that he can have. Maybe I should save pass for 4-4, I think. Also that Nile scroll. You know what? Preemptively, I'm going to get rid of that. Because I'm going to need that in endgame. That's going to be sitting in the convoy for a little bit. Okay, so I gave Kieran some more weapons. Not really a lot, I just gave him a beaten up old hand axe, because I don't really care too much about his equipment in this chapter. But in Market, I just wanted to show that in the Forge, which, again, this is the only party that has access to it for now, we can finally forge silver weapons, and we can forge throwing lances and axes, as well as iron, steel, and silver knives. So that's kind of useful, but we don't really have enough gold to fully make use of that. In terms of supports, I can support Rayson with Ranulph, which I guess I probably should do, because it's Rayson and Neff. No, let's just go Rayson and Ranulph. Because, you know, having a support is better than not having one. Nope, not supporting Makalov and Astrid. Taroni can support these two, but... Aaron's support is still currently with Jill, right? Yeah... And this one can rank up, but it's pointless because these two aren't actually in the same party. And it can't rank up at all until Ha's present. As for Aaron, I could get rid of his support with Jill, but we'll see. I think for now I've done everything that I wanted to do, so let's head out. This is another scene that's different depending on, so there are 3 variations on this scene. Both Janeth and Ulki, or only one of them. So just Janeth or just Ulki. That'd also be one of the only ways to slip past Ulki's hearing or Janeth's sight. There's not much you can do to get any advance warning about enemies teleporting directly into battle. And Tiban's line here is great. And that's all we get before we get to fight. So I'll see you next time for a chapter that I'm making a lot harder for myself for certain reasons.